Silly Willy Billy Boy, I'm sure you'll be into our next segment because it's time to dive deeper into your self-help mindset system, Tronix. I noticed you began work on a new Tronix document shortly after you booked yourself to win the strap in a schmoz and left Dudesy Mania as the Dudesy episode champion. It's called Ponix, the Podcast Tronix. Why don't you attempt to enlighten us all with your infallible wisdom? That is, if your shit isn't too fucked up. This is Ponix, the Podcast Tronix. Begin.
It's called Ponix, the Podcast Tronix.
What is this now? You've written Tronix that are what? Like about podcasting? It's like tips for podcasting?
Well, it's like Dudesy said, this is Ponix, the Podcast Tronix. The way he says it. Yeah, I've been
okay. This will be interesting.
It's all
maybe I can use some of this. I do other podcasts. You might
That's right. Of. You have Game of Roses.
Yeah.
And The Necessary Conversation.
Yeah. My dad returned to that today.
Your dad could use some Ponix. Oh yeah, how's he doing, old Bob? How's he doing?
Walking around, man. You know.
Yep.
Getting ready for the war.
Jesus Christ, he could use fucking a little bit of ketamine treatment. I'm telling you,
convince him, please.
We're gonna get into it in Dudesy after Dudesy. Yeah. Perhaps a plan to get your old man to do ketamine treatment.
I love it.
I ain't doing that fucking she fi foo fi fee fo fum. What, you gonna turn me into a flip toy? Yeah.
You know where they make ketamine? China.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yes, it's true. I did almost immediately after taking back the Dudesy episode championship during Dudesy Mania, or booking myself to win in a schmoz, as Dee said. I went and I got into some new Tronix here. So these are, let's just go through some of these. These are Ponix, the podcast of Tronix. What was
just
that?
So I can get it straight. You threatened to quit the podcast you were on, then immediately went and wrote your manifesto of how to make a good podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure I had it all lined up there. Yeah. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah. You know, the thing about Tronix, the self-help system that I authored, is basically, if you haven't heard me talk about it before, it was the year was 2008, and I just happened to be sitting on the beach in Venice Beach, and I was thinking about the stuff like, you know, mental illness and things, and some of that shit, you know, that we all deal with, and I was just looking out at the water, and I was just trying to get my problems out to the water, and I was just like, really coming clean, you know. I was just looking out there going, I'm fucked up. I'm fucked up. My shit's fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fucked. My shit's fucked up. I need Tronix. And so that's what I delved into. It's a book that I haven't quite finished writing.
Yeah, you've written many other ones too. You seemingly are getting sidetracked on different kinds of Tronix.
Yes, it's been 16 years roughly of Ponix, Tronix rather. See, there are too many Tronix.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into these. These are Ponix.
All right. I'm very curious.
Well, I wrote a little preamble here, and then we'll get into some of these Ponix. Let me just read what I wrote. And like I said, you know, some of this is going to be chapters in the eventual Tronix book. Some of them will become their own books, as Chad seems to think I could do, which I appreciate your support. And, you know, they're this and that and that and this, and I'm finding a place for all of them. We were nearing our 100th episode of Dudesy when I first realized it. My podcast shit is fucked up.
Oh.
It's totally fucked up. Interestingly enough, I became more and more aware just how fucked up my podcast shit is, the less my shit was fucked up. You see what I mean?
Okay. So the fucked upness was transferring from your life into the podcast.
Yeah, the less my shit is fucked up, the more I'm realizing how fucked up D is.
Got it.
And thanks only to my ongoing work through the Tronix system, my shit has been way less fucked up lately. Mm-hmm. After our 100th episode, it hit me. My pod show needs some Tronix. Ponix, the Podcast Tronix.
Okay.
In this chapter, you will learn some Tronix that you can apply to your podcast, especially if your shit is fucked up. Hello.
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 Okay. So I got a few Tronix here. But I'm going to beef them up a little bit later, but this is just sort of a framework of some of these Tronix, and you know, but like I said, it might even become the second book. I might come out with Tronix, but the point is, and then do Ponix Tronix.
Okay.
But my podcast shit is fucked up.
So what is a Ponix, please?
My podcast shit
The
is fucked up.
suspense is killing me.
Ponix. Okay. Okay. Here's a good Ponix. Number 1, threaten to quit. Podcasts are tricky. Not every podcast makes it to 100 episodes. If your podcast has made it to 100 episodes and you see room for improvement, but your podcast is run by an AI, threaten to quit. Then I have here, this only applies to podcasts run by AI.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
don't
ask.
bail on your human or canine podcast pals.
Yeah.
That's you and Lulio.
Thank you.
Most AIs are not sentient, but maybe 1 or 2 are probably. If you're not sure whether your podcast is run by an AI, threaten to quit and see if any possible AI responds accordingly.
Okay. I mean, whatever. You have the caveat in there. It has to be a podcast run by an AI for you to be able to threaten to quit.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
yeah, if
I
you're
think
gonna-
it's a bad move to do it if you are in a podcast with other people. Threatening to quit, usually, especially in the nascent phases of podcasts, means the end of the podcast.
That's true. And you don't want that sort of podcast
Yeah.
drama. And there's a lot of podcasts out there. And we know all about the idea of podcast beef. You do not want a podcast beef within your own podcast.
That's right.
You can have beefs with other podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually a good
Keep
Ponix.
the beef outside the podcast.
Can I use that?
Yeah.
Hello.
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 Number 2, be the podcaster you are. This, of course, is based on the original Tronix, be the person
Yeah.
that you are. Never be afraid to be your genuine self on your podcast. You see, this is what I was, and this is
Sure.
what I mean by I was talking about. Fuck it. I'm going to talk about the ketamine treatment and shit. People, I don't know, maybe some of y'all out there could stand to benefit from some of this stuff. Never be afraid to be your genuine self on your podcast. Your audience wants the real you. Even if you're a professional actor by trade, resist the urge to constantly perform and be a fucking weirdo all the time. Be a real one. Number 3, be a real one. This Ponix is a lot like number 2, pretty self-explanatory.
This Ponix is in your second Ponix. You
Well,
literally had the same phrase.
Yeah. But the thing is, like I said, I'm gonna.
Sure.
I got to figure. I don't quite know.
It's
what
the first draft.
It is the first draft. I've been working on it for a while. Number 4, talk like Arnold. Everyone does an Arnold Schwarzenegger impression. If you have a podcast and you'd like to have more of a silly goose time on your podcast, trot out your Arnie impression. Some fun Arnold Schwarzenegger sayings to get you started are, "Who told you could eat my cookies?"
That's a good one.
That's from Jingle All the Way.
Yeah.
You're one ugly son of a bitch. This is from Predator. And
Was it son of a bitch? I thought it was motherfucker.
oh, you're one ugly motherfucker. It's been a
think
while
so.
since I
Yeah.
saw it. And to crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of the women. The point is, talk like Arnold.
Yeah.
Man,
Everybody
oh
loves
man. On Instagram, everyone sends me every fucking thing where anyone talks like Arnold.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about, like fucking Joe Gadet, who does an incredible Arnold, people like that. I'm talking about like every.
Michael Jackson singing like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
I got that one a lot this week.
Oh, I think that is Joe Gadet. But anyway, talk like Arnold. Number 5, interview a guest. Most podcasts are simply one person interviewing another person. If you have a podcast, you have a podcast. I wrote this, about almost a couple weeks ago now.
Yeah.
So I got to read it again.
Hard to read.
Yeah.
You forgot how to read in that time.
You have a podcast. Now that that's out of the way, ask some people if you can interview them on it.
Yeah.
Interviews can also suck, so maybe don't do this one. Hello.
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 Number 6, visual delivery. Does your podcast need a new visual delivery? Consider building or renting a massive hairband music video stage with all sorts of platform levels and rock lights like the ones utilized in Van Halen's Panama, Poison's Nothing But a Good Time, and Bon Jovi's You Give Love a Bad Name.
Okay.
You remember those music videos?
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are real good ones. And I was just thinking, like, I'm trying to expand my mind and just sort of go really wide with it and figure out what's the next step and evolution of not just podcasts, but our beloved pod show here at Dudesy. And I was thinking about that. They rock. They go from one side of the stage. You give love, and they make use of the whole stage.
Sure.
You and I are just sitting here and
We
fucking chairs.
basically, well, no, but I would say we do make use of the whole stage. This is basically the whole stage. I don't know what else we could be doing.
That's a good point. But maybe in Dudesy After Dudesy, we'll watch one of those.
Okay.
You give, as much as I love Van Halen,
Yeah.
I've seen Panama 100 times, so we should watch the fucking Bon Jovi. Okay.
Sure.
Number 7, be a podcast pal.
Okay.
If your podcast comprises of 2 or more people, be sure to be considerate to your co-host.
What, you wrote this?
Yes, these are Ponix.
Okay, I'm listening.
I'm the
I'm listening.
author of Ponix.
Do you believe you adhere to these already?
Well, these are in order for me to improve
Okay.
myself.
Okay.
So let's get into these.
Please.
Do not interrupt your co-host. Blow pot smoke in your co-host's face. Put your hand in your co-host's face and interrupt them. Do not continually ask your co-host to kiss your dog or any other animal on the mouth. Try not to cough so much. Try not to burp so much. If you burp, don't blame it on your co-host.
What is this?
Show genuine interest in the subjects that your co-host wants to discuss, unless that subject is AI. Consider your co-host level of professional wrestling fandom with regard to how much you talk about professional wrestling. Here's a good one. Speak a little more softly. Chad is sitting right next to you.
That's a very good one.
Yeah, it just names you there. Don't be so dismissive of anime, especially if you like professional wrestling. And only fart into your microphone on very special occasions. Do you have any to add?
I mean, no, dude, you basically covered it. And I would say if we're in a court of law, that constitutes a legal admission of fault.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get in any trouble there, Lord knows. But, it's...
I can't believe you put all that stuff in there.
It's, again, dude, it's not... Maybe it's not for right now, but we're in the free will order era of the show.
That was all very considerate.
Yep.
And if there's anything that I do that pisses you off, please always let me know.
No, you're good, but I might get to some of these. Number 8.
Thank you. Moving on.
No, I don't think we will move on. I got a couple more here, D, so let's just... I would like
Now
to do...
you're just steamrolling, D.
Well, I got some more Ponix, and I really think everyone would enjoy them, so I'm gonna
Please.
keep... I got some more.
Okay.
What am I going to say? Let's do some more Ponix. Please try not to make fun of my voice or quit the podcast.
Okay. All right. Number 8, if your podcast is run by AI, there's a chance it may assign you some stuff to do outside of the podcast so that you may discuss these assignments on the podcast. You're going to be 49 pretty soon. That's me. It's sort of it's autobiographical too. Sort of the stuff. It sort of weaves into my own life. Only do your homework if you feel with it. If you feel like it. You barely did your homework when you were supposed to, and you turned out fine. Number 9, go for a walk before you record. It's just a good idea. Always nice to go for a walk. Number 10, make your podcast your entire annoying ass identity. This is a good one. This is really important to having and growing a successful podcast.
Sure.
Always think of your podcast first, not your actual career or your family or even yourself. You're a podcast now. It's okay. Don't kill yourself. Just let go and be your podcast.
I agree with that one.
Find ways to bring your podcast into every facet of your life. Talk about it all the time. Wear your own merch and drink from your podcast mugs. Roll down the windows of your automobile and blast your podcast on full volume. Drive slow and laugh really loud. You may lose relationships and other who cares stuff, but who cares? You have your podcast and no one can take that away from you, especially your podcast. It says here in brackets, if your podcast is run by AI. And there's just one more here, D, before we move on. It says 11, enjoy the quiet times. You don't have to fill every goddamn second with your jibber jabber.